Card fight, Vanguard.
I'm John Hook with your Fox 10 Facebook update. Two journalists killed during a live report in Virginia, remembered by their fellow colleagues with a moment of silence. Allison Parker and Adam Ward were gunned down on live television yesterday. Ward's fiancée also worked at the station. It was her final day there. Following the shooting, she posted a message on Facebook saying her life has been turned upside down. The gunman shot and killed himself while trying to evade police. He is a former employee of the station. The first home demolished to make way for the Loop 202 expansion in Ahwatukee. The 202 South Mountain Freeway will run west along Pecos Road, connecting with the I-10 freeway around 59th Avenue. Construction on that freeway expected to take 4 years. In Gilbert, a 19-month-old nearly drowns in a community pool. The girl was in the pool with her mom when another adult noticed she was face down in the water. Bystanders began CPR. The girl was breathing on her own when she was taken to the hospital. Arizona Governor Doug Ducey is canceling the state's contract with a private prison company following several days of riots at the prison in Kingman. Those riots happened last month, heavily damaging 2 housing units. More than 1,000 inmates had to be relocated because of the damage. A new Quinnipiac University poll shows that Donald Trump continues to lead in the Republican presidential primary. Dr. Ben Carson now running second. On the Democratic side, Hillary Clinton has a sizable lead over Senator Bernie Sanders and Vice President Joe Biden, who is yet to formally enter the race. Plenty of sunshine on tap as we inch closer to the weekend. Temperatures could hit 109 degrees tomorrow and Saturday. That's your Fox 10 Facebook update. I'm John.
Plenty of sunshine on tap. Well, that was a little outdated by a few hours, huh? Because we had us some rain. We had us some storms. Give me 2 seconds to put both of the mics in front of my face because I don't have a loud voice, and I apologize. I see people teasing me in the chat room about the copyright infringement. Yes, actually, I accidentally started the show as a YouTube commercial was playing for Vanguard, official card fight Vanguard channel, and skip ad. I want to skip it. And they had music in their commercial, and I did not mean to do that. So thank you. Let's take a look at some of this weather that we've got going on here. Here's our tower cam. Oh, and welcome. Wait, I should have probably done this earlier, but welcome to Fox 10 News Now. Hi. I'm waiting for Jude LaCava. He's going to come hang out with me, but why don't we take a look at tower cam? That's my lower third. Now it's gone. But it looks beautiful. It's been kind of rainy over the last few hours. Cleaning up, but beautiful outside as the sun is going down. I hope you enjoyed our 6 o'clock broadcast starring Troy Hayden. I enjoyed it. It was riveting. And now, let's see here. Now I would like to pull some more weather for you so we can get a little bit of a recap of what our afternoon looked like.
Turning to storm coverage this afternoon, take a look at this video posted to our Facebook page by Erica Pearson. That is going up. This is a lightning strike on a palm tree, they think, in Mesa. That is like a tiki torch gone mad. Look at that. That is unbelievable. North of McKellips, Mesa Fire quickly got on the scene. They doused the fire. It is a spectacular video. Erica, thank you for sending that in. Hopefully, we didn't lose power lines or phone lines in that, but that is really going up. And that's even more than a palm tree, right, Troy?
That almost doesn't look real. I think maybe what you have here is a palm tree that hasn't been trimmed in a really long time.
Wow.
You know how those fronds,
yeah, right.
Because that's a lot of fuel. It almost looks like it's lava erupting from the ground or something. That's amazing. Well, that's a heck of a piece of video there.
That's quite a piece of video. Thank you, Erica, for sending that in.
Thanks for sending that in. All right, hey, we got some more video for you. Not quite as exciting as that, but some pretty good weather video. And let's start with William Robles. I like this because this is Guadalupe, so this is right there, I-10, US 60. And look at the palm trees in the back. When you talk about wind, look at the top of those palm trees. just whipping around. He says at times you could hear the wind whistling by. He's getting a little squirrely with the camera there, but that's William Robles there. Thank you for that. How about we'll go to Janie. This is quick, so look at it, but big sheets of water coming down there in Scottsdale. Denise says, holy rainstorm, 303 in Happy Valley. And yeah, the trees are just whipping there and sheets of rain hitting. Another good piece of video. And, you know, we gave Anita so many props for working, you know, when she's done for the day. We got to pull up a shot that the Hooner sent in. And by the way, his handle there on Twitter is Hooner Fox 10, but there it is.
That is a great shot.
He says it's like a battle between the good sky and the bad sky. And it's happening where I think the bad sky is winning.
Bad sky's winning. Yep.
Yeah. So there
Certainly
you go.
did today. No doubt.
Good stuff. A good shot, Hooner, and thanks for sending that in.
All right, let's check in with Dave. Dave, what's the story out there? Is it at all dissipating, or are we still in this?
Well, it is dissipating. It's dissipating from the west, which is where it came in from. After seeing that palm tree on fire, we added the lightning strikes to the maps because that's probably what happened out there, a lightning strike. There are a lot of lightning strikes with this particular storm and around the state right now. As you look up here and you see a little over 6,000 per hour is what we're dealing with this particular storm at this time. So as we get you a look at what's going on down a little bit closer, here's Peoria, this is Goodyear, this is Buckeye right here, and then just look right off to Buckeye. There's a big storm system, nice big cell right off of Buckeye at this time. So what we're doing is we're kind of regenerating this storm system, or another storm system coming in from the south this time. The first system came in from the west. This is kind of a southern storm. As you can see though, there's a little bit of a western influence on this as well. Here's Phoenix right here. Here's Ahwatukee. There's Chandler, Guadalupe Mesa. So you see that we're just starting to move the storm in. There's Levine as we start to see more and more moisture in this particular area. Already mentioned Tempe, 79 hundredths of an inch of rain, about a half an inch of rain in the Mesa area. As you can see, that storm kind of gives up a little bit as it gets in there with all of that color and turns to green very, very rapidly. But these areas down here getting a quarter to a half an inch of rain as well. And then of course out east we're seeing a lot of where this moisture is all generating to up into the Show Low White River area, and you can see some of it headed down south as well. And then once again, take a look at all of the lightning strikes that we are seeing with this storm system. More of them off in the distance, a few of them coming into the city, however. And once again, we give you a look at Sky Harbor. This one we stand back just a little bit to give you an idea of how much rain there is, where it's coming from, and that there is a break or two in there as we start looking at these systems. And then up in the northeast where a lot of this moisture is being generated, and then across the north here you can also see some very, very active weather. And once again, those lightning strikes becoming a big part of this storm. As you've seen, a couple of fires have been kicked off already. 90 degrees in Scottsdale, still 100 in Fountain Hills, 92 at Cave Creek, 92 right now up in Deer Valley. We have 95 degrees in Glendale. Those temperatures coming down as that moisture comes rolling in. Chandler at 97, 82 degrees at Sky Harbor. We had a high today of 108 degrees, and right now we sit at 82 degrees. There are 107 degrees on the high is what we're looking at. That may be incorrect. I'll check on that because I looked on the website and it said 108 on the day today. We'll have more on this storm system and what it's doing to the valley coming up.
Well, we know one thing it's doing. It's bringing some rain in some spots for sure, Dave. Take a look at the tower cam looking back toward downtown Phoenix. Really a beautiful, beautiful evening tonight, even though we've gotten a lot of rain. Back in a minute as we continue our storm coverage.
Well, okay, so hi everybody. Welcome back to Fox 10 News Now. I was just talking to Jude, and Jude was saying he'd love to see where you are, and
I want to see. They can see where we're at.
Where
obviously.
we are, what we're doing
but
right now.
Are you?
He wants to see your living room. Tweet us pictures of your.
Where do you connect with us from? Are you in your office? Are you in the basement? Are you in the attic?
Yeah.
Are you in a telephone booth? I mean, where
Are you at the library?
Are you at the library? Are you at FedEx on the computer or something? I don't know. I mean, I'd be curious to kind of hear from you.
Yeah.
And send us a photo or
And
whatever.
both of our handles are at the bottom of the screen, so it's as
Yes.
quick as taking a picture of your surroundings and
Sure.
tweeting it to us and just saying, hey,
Yeah.
here I am in Ahwatukee or Glendale. We'd like to see you. We just want to know. We just want to be. It would make us feel closer to our audience, don't you think?
Connecting, communication, it's a two-way street, and I'm curious to see where you react to us from. I think it adds another dimension in our relationship.
Jeff has stopped taking pictures of us every time he passes us. Do you
There
think
goes
he's
Jeff
over
Lake,
it?
and
Do you think he's over us? Is he over the magic?
I think people, it's funny, when they walk by, and our fine viewers can't see this, they either duck underneath the desk here or they sprint out the door. I think
Yeah.
they're cautious of you, Kinsey. They just
I
want to make sure that they're not reeled into the net.
I'm a maniac. I don't. I will make them a star on Fox 10
Yes,
News now, and some
hey,
of them aren't ready for
sure.
that star
No,
power.
That's really the visibility and everything else that goes with this.
What would make you feel more comfortable? How would you like to start this off? Are we going to start it off with the typical sports talk, or are we going to go in more into personal?
I'll tell you what. Let's start off with the request that you
Specific.
made.
I requested a throwback Thursday.
You wanted a throwback Thursday, and in our discussion, really over the last 4 or 5 weeks, I mentioned a moment, a very
Special
moment,
Yeah.
and a reverent moment, if you will, from a person who I believe is a legendary childhood iconic actor.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about this moment, he is now since deceased, kind of a tragic ending, but he gave so much joy and entertainment and laughter, especially in the 1980s, and you probably know what I'm about to say with different strokes, the famous late, great Gary Coleman. I'm going to tell you the story, but I also want to look at what some of our viewers and you presuppose when it comes to Justin Bieber, when it comes to Britney Spears, when it comes to
Michael
Lindsay
Jackson.
Lohan, Michael Jackson. We're talking about childhood stars, music, entertainment, acting, and it's a struggle. The
really
fame and
is.
fortune is there, but it could be a bankruptcy, it could be a drug overdose,
Alcoholism.
it could be alcoholism, and many times success comes so early in life that they can't handle it, or those around them can't handle it, or they take advantage
And they're
of it.
surrounded by
Yeah.
yes people
Yes.
that perpetuate these problems,
Yes.
these really negative habits.
That's right.
And they are people that just want to continue to be able to live the rock star lifestyle, so they will encourage bad behavior. I mean, I was briefly around Justin Bieber when I was in Los Angeles, and the people that he surrounded himself with were very negative influences on his life, and they encouraged his bad behavior because they loved getting to go, they loved the VIP lifestyle. They loved going out to eat and not having to pay for anything. They loved to going to clubs and drinking free alcohol and being at the VIP table. And he surrounded himself by people that were really bad influences. And I was just talking to my mom about David Cassidy, still in the news.
He was a big heartthrob. As
Huge
a teenager,
heartthrob.
the girls in my
So
high school loved
handsome.
David Cassidy.
He was so
everything.
handsome.
He was the man.
And so
The
talented.
ultimate heartthrob.
They I don't know. Have you seen Trainwreck with Amy Schumer?
I did, and I thought it was fabulous.
So great, but
Very funny.
they play "I Think I Love You" by the Partridge
Yes,
Family
they do.
in
Oh,
that
it's a great movie.
movie.
It is a very funny movie. LeBron did a great job in
He
that movie, by
did.
the way, as we give you a sports angle. He
Yes.
was great. It was hilarious, absolutely hilarious, and yet there were some very poignant, very serious,
Touching moments.
profound moments
Yeah.
about family, about a passing of a father. I thought it was fabulous, and it was not only hilarious, but there were some really serious moments about family relationships.
Yeah. Well, there was David Cassidy they played his song in it, and he is another childhood star who had it too soon, had people around him that were encouraged bad behavior, and is now still struggling, constantly getting in trouble for DUIs, running out of money, and having a hard time getting work.
How about another one here, Macaulay Culkin?
Where is he?
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about a childhood star that owned the movies with all of his holiday movies, and then the drug addiction. So it just seems like it's almost expected, sadly, most of the time, that a lot of these childhood stars
They're not protected.
They're not protected. They're basically coddled and surrounded by the wrong people, and it ends tragically. And in Gary Coleman's case, it ended tragically. He, there's some disputes about whether or not his girlfriend, ex-spouse, took advantage of him. His family may have cashed in as well. I think that it's sad because there wasn't a bigger star in the 1980s than Gary Coleman. I mean, he was funny.
In the 1980s, he was making $100,000 per episode,
huge.
which is unheard of.
Huge.
That's absolutely unheard of. Let's see, what else does this say? He sued his parents because he said that they misrepresented him and they were taking from him, which is another common thing we see in child stars. Aaron Carter, Nick Carter
There
of
you
the
go.
Backstreet Boys, the pop stars. They sued their mom because they said that she was taking money from them that she wasn't owed. But yeah, he was a huge star that became a pop culture icon.
And he, towards the end of his life, he became a radio personality.
Ran for governor?
He ran for governor of California, and I think he finished 4th or 5th in one of the primaries. He was doing radio in Tucson. He had visited Phoenix, and on this particular occasion, I wanted to do something totally off the cuff because he's a very funny guy, and the way this played out, this is totally unscripted. This was after our 10:30 newscast to try to set the scene. And here comes Gary Coleman, and I said, I'm just going to have some fun with him. I mean, he likes sports, I know that, and let's just play a little basketball. So he walks in. So again, he doesn't know me from Adam.
And this is
and
not
I've
a
never
typical
met
day
him.
at Fox 10 either.
No, it's not. And he walks in, and I have a basketball, and I said, hey, let's just have some fun. And he picks it up and plays along, and we're having a ball. And this is, we've got a few moments of this if you'd like to see it.
Yeah, and it's sweet because you can tell he has a kind heart.
Me and you, we're just playing some hoops. Come on, man. Let's see what you got. Man, not bad. This guy got some talent. Come on. Not bad at all. He can handle the ball. Come on, Gary. Get the body. Oh. You're supposed to catch it. Let me back you down, man. Come on, man. Come on. Hey, we will well, man. Come on, move back and down, Gary. Yeah. I take it you play. I did.
How's it going?
Just fine. How you doing?
All right, how you?
We'll run a break. So thrill. Ready, Gary?
You guys have far too much fun. Going up court.
Running the break with Gary Coleman.
Right.
This was fun. It was really cool.
And he's so sweet to you.
Great sense of humor, the fabulous smile, and
I haven't done it yet. I just got here.
and this
from
is late at
LA.
night. This is about 10:30, so he's kind of gassed right about it. And I said, listen, I got to do a satellite interview,
Yeah.
and enough of the antics.
He says that to you?
Kind of like, okay, let's take a time out here.
Yeah.
And
Need a
then I asked him,
minute.
I said, really, when you get back into town, I would love to have you host the show,
He's gonna wear me
co-host the
out
show. He was a
before
big
I do
football fan, big NASCAR fan.
Wait, oh, wow.
You guys on live or
And
what?
Are you on live?
Oh,
he thought that was live, but he just picked it up just like that. He just decided
thank you.
to.
Thank you.
It's live now.
Oh, just
on
fine.
News
It's a
Now.
long way
He
up
just
here.
decided to kind of rock and roll with it. And
Tucson, yeah.
See,
See, if I
if
had known
people
they
talk
wanted
to
to
me,
do it in-
what are some of the more unusual moments? This was one of them. It was
Yeah.
fun.
Well, I
and
think this is one of your favorite moments
it
because
is.
you've brought
It really
this
is.
up
No, I did.
multiple times.
I love the guy as an actor, as a comedian, and to have a chance to do something totally ridiculous and off the cuff.
And again, an
Really
icon.
special.
This is a pop culture icon.
yeah,
You
for
can't.
sure.
I mean, this is one of those stories that will always make us laugh.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's almost more humorous for you to tell than to actually see it.
It is, because you think, okay, wait a minute. Gary Coleman walks into. If I tell it, people are like, wait, what are you kidding me? I don't know if I believe that.
Yeah.
But he walks in, and I toss him a basketball, and we goof around for a couple of minutes. But sadly, he passed away a few years later, and I think Different Strokes is that on TV land still? I think it might
It's still,
be. It's
they
out there.
still
It's on
show
syndication.
different strokes.
It's
And
funny stuff.
reality is he's still a figure. You know,
Yes.
I'm not going to compare him to Marilyn Monroe or James Dean, but he is an icon in his own
I mean, you have to
world.
look at him as a top 10 childhood actor of the last 30, 40 years. And, you hope that as these stories unfold and as time goes on, there's better care taken to these special actors and actresses at a young age. And that really comes down to everything from their parents to, and this happens in sports too. I mean, you can look at Johnny Football, Johnny Manziel, and who went into rehab this past off season.
Wow.
And you can say, look, he was coddled, and you can look at some of the situations involving his parents, and you can say, this guy just kind of party animal. Now he's learning as he gets older. It's time to buckle down, get serious, clean up, and play football. So it's not an unusual storyline, but it's sometimes a very sad one.
Yeah. But I'm glad that we have that sweet moment on camera.
There you go.
And you'll always have that.
I wondered if you're probably thinking, Jude, are you, delusional, or did you really play hoops with Gary? And I said, yeah, no, it was fun. And he was a cool cat.
Well,
cool
it
dude.
Just shows you because, I've interviewed hundreds of celebrities in Los Angeles, and I've had really unpleasant experiences, and I've been really disappointed because
there was no formal introduction.
Yeah,
here too.
exactly.
He just walked in.
But he was eager
Pretty cool
and
dude.
kind, and
and he played along with it.
And he played along, and there were so many people that speaking of Macaulay Culkin, I interviewed one of his brothers at South by Southwest, and it was the most uncomfortable experience of my life. I wish I could cleanse. I wish I could Men in Black that memory from my brain, because he made me feel so uncomfortable. He hated that he had to talk to me, and you could sense it in the room.
That's very uncomfortable.
Yes.
That is not fun.
Right. And so this young man, how old was he here? Because this is an old. How old is this video?
This video is, I'm going to say,
was I born yet?
Yes, you were. No, this was about. I'm going to say this was a good 8-9 years ago.
Oh, because the set is pretty retro.
I'm going to say it was about 9 years ago.
That is a pretty retro set that we had back then.
Yeah, it was. No, we had that set for a long. This was the last set before we changed over to our new set. So I'm going to say
we stepped it up a little bit, huh?
Yeah, this went into
nice.
I'm going to say about 8-9 years ago. But
look, you're wearing the same tie.
There it is, right there. In flashback. It is Throwback Thursday. I want to show you something too. If you can go to my Twitter account.
Sure,
because
I already have it up.
There was a passing today, and this sounds like a downer day here. But Daryl Dawkins was a absolute monster of a player in a good way. His nickname was Chocolate Thunder.
It's my nickname too.
He said he was from the planet Lovetron. He went from high school to the NBA. And if you go down a few, you're going to see.
Oh, you're periscoping now?
Yes, periscoping as well. How about
Jude?
that? This is Daryl Dawkins right here, and the reason he's holding a rim is that he was such a thunderous, powerful dunk artist, the art of a slam dunk, that he literally shattered backboards. And if you go back a little bit farther here, I think I have this on.
Lower?
Go a little higher here.
Higher.
And let's see if we can. Or actually, I'm going to go right here because I have it on my Facebook page right here. Take a look at this.
Am I moving back to our screen? There we go.
I'm gonna show you this here, and give you a really good look at what I think is even somebody who's not a huge basketball fan.
Is it posted yet? I could pull it up.
Yeah, pull it up on my Facebook page, and maybe you can give me a little shot here at Jude LaCava Fox 10, and you'll be able to let the viewers see this. He was a fabulous dresser. This guy, this cat was like more dynamic than Shaquille O'Neal.
Wow.
And funny and colorful and beloved, and he passed away today. Daryl Dawkins came right out of high school, played in the NBA. There you go. There's that video that you have right in this area here. Now, this is just a small clip.
I'm going to add us to the box, okay?
There you go.
Well, I'll put us over
There's
here.
a couple of how powerful and how thunderous his dunks were. Now, watch this. He just shattered the entire backboard. That's the backboard. I want you to. They called him Dr. Dunk.
That's
now, watch
cool.
this. Watch this right here. So, after years of this with Daryl Dawkins, there's the rim on the court. They decided to develop the breakaway rim, which is on a hinge. So if the force is so great, it will hinge almost like a door, and it won't shatter the backboard. And the reason he changed the game was because of those thunderous dunks. They actually had to hinge the rim so it would absorb the power, and it wouldn't shatter the backboard. And it's because of Daryl Dawkins. He passed away today. He was a really likable, colorful.
Was it
fun.
of natural causes? Do we know
It
how
was
it
of
was?
of a heart attack. He was just 58. He had coached in some of the minor leagues back in Atlantic City and back in eastern Pennsylvania, and a real loss because everybody that played with him just loved him. And imagine coming right out of high school. He was one of the first. Moses Malone and then Darryl Dawkins came right out of high school and played professional basketball. And Dawkins was really a spectacle to be seen in the NBA in the 70s and 80s, right around the late 80s.
I don't think we got to ever talk about Frank Gifford. What are your thoughts on Frank Gifford?
Frank Gifford was everything you wanted in an athlete. He was, he was a guy's guy.
Yeah.
He great-looking guy, great football player. He really started the endorsement craze when it comes to, if you look at what he did in broadcasting, he was really the breakthrough guy. And I say that because, you had other ex-players, Joe Garagiola, who was at the game last night, but Frank was a Hall of Fame player. And then he goes over to television in the late 60s, and now he's hosting Wide World of Sports. He is doing the Olympic Games. He's doing Monday Night Football. And he's eventually married to Kathy Lee Gifford. He was the total package.
I love Kathy Lee.
He represented the league well. He was everything you want in a professional football player, and and was a really polished broadcaster. I don't think you can really put anybody above him when it comes to ex-players that thrived in broadcasting. Gifford has to be at or near the top, and very well respected. And again, at 80, I think it was 82, 83, natural causes, but he was a breakthrough guy in TV and was part of that great tradition on Monday Night Football.
I did transition into Sunset because it was romantic, and I wanted to experience that with you, frankly, and the chat room.
How about that? In the chat room.
Yeah,
Wow.
but so what I do appreciate about what you just said is you're the only person that I've spoken to about Frank Gifford that didn't bring up the scandal.
Yeah, I think that he was set up.
He was set up. He was set up. It was ridiculous, and but he was a handsome, happy man, and he was so healthy towards the end of his life. That's why I was surprised. He seemed like he often appeared on the Today Show with Hoda and Kathy Lee. He was on there quite often.
Yes, and I will tell you this: there was a moment in the 1958 title game, and if you can bring this up, it's a picture. If you want to Google it, this is when football really started to catch on. So if you go Frank Gifford. 1958 title game, you're going to see what happened. If you ever question whether football is a violent game, Chuck Bednarik was one of the last two-way players. He played offense and defense, and this was, if I'm not mistaken,
on the
1958 title game. Frank Gifford, Chuck Bednarik. Yeah, I just didn't put Frank Gifford in, and you're going to see the picture. Okay, now keep going down a little bit because this was really an amazing moment here. And there's some great shots right there.
Yeah.
Okay, there it is right there.
Right here?
No, you go
right
up
here?
one. Go up one. Yes, that's the one right there. Okay. That's Frank Gifford on the field right there, knocked out. And the man above him, number 60, is a legendary Hall of Famer who just passed away last year, Chuck Bednarik. He was knocked out cold. And Frank, this was in, I believe, 1958. It was either, the 58 title game or the 60 title game. Chuck Bednarik knocked him out. Frank actually retired from the game of football.
After this?
After this. And then he came back, I think, to play another couple of years. But that hit was never flagged. And it's one of those, if I'm not mistaken, I think this was either on the cover of Sports Illustrated or Life magazine, a major publication. And this was just another symbol of the violent nature of the game. But that is Frank Gifford in a Giants uniform, laid out flat, and there's Chuck Bednarik standing over him. And if you're looking at one of the most notable moments, more violent moments in the history of the league, Frank is out cold. He retired from the game came back to play about another 2.5, 3 years.
Wow.
Then retired, and then started his broadcasting career. But that was an unforgettable moment.
Who is somebody, and it can be Frank Gifford, obviously, but who inspired you to do what you do?
Oh gosh, I mean that's I never really wanted a real job, so that was the big.
So
motivation.
you should have been a millennial.
No, I think that I really loved radio, and in particular radio, and I enjoyed the radio personalities of the day. Going back to Pennsylvania and Cleveland, there was a guy by the name of Gary D, who was the shock jock before Howard Stern. He was on 60 Minutes. He was outrageous. And by the way, I'm an intern in Cleveland, and
That's where all the good things happen.
Gary D is there. A guy named Joe Finan. Don Imus, by the way, was doing afternoons.
How cool.
Okay, Don Imus was there for a while. Don Imus was not in the league of Gary D. Gary was an outrageous character. And as I was approaching my college years, and I finished up playing a year of small college basketball, I said, I want to get involved in this business, and climbed the ladder with the Cleveland station as an intern, and kind of work my way up. But it goes fast, I'll tell you that. But I think what's interesting about it is that I would sit there at the Cleveland Burke Lakefront Airport, and Howard Cosell and Don Meredith and Frank Gifford would come into the airport on Monday Night Football when the Browns would play. And I would see these guys enjoying themselves, having a couple maybe before the game, and it was right there, right off Lake Erie. So that was inspiring to me to have a chance. And about a year later, I interviewed Howard Cosell in Pittsburgh at the Larry Holmes, Ronaldo, Mr. Snipes heavyweight title fight. So got the bug that way and just kind of stayed with it.
That's cool. No, I think that I wish I would have met Frank Gifford. Kathy Lee is one of the only people that I haven't met yet that I would love to meet. I saw she was here, hawking some of her wine not too long ago.
How about that?
And I was devastated. I was like, I could have literally walked into a grocery store and met her. I saw it the day that she was here, just an hour after she stopped. But they were busy. But I think the point you were making, though, is he took a lot of pretty tough hits, and that's why he passed so soon, despite being in great shape.
I mean, I think that, I'm amazed that, and Frank played, and the reason I show you that photo, he played probably in a much more violent, it wasn't probably, it was a much more violent era of professional football, especially when you look at the late 50s and 60s. You didn't have anywhere near the penalties. The equipment was lousy. Mm-hmm. Okay, these guys, they didn't have anywhere near the technology and the equipment and the preparation and everything that goes into it. What's amazing to me is that Frank held it together and obviously suffered a severe concussion. He was knocked unconscious in the photo we just saw.
Yeah.
And he kept it together really well into his 70s on the air. I mean, he was on the air probably a good 7, 8, 10 years ago, in his early 70s, having played professional football. So some guys seem to adjust better to older age than others, whereas some players who've taken a number of hits can have some early dementia in their 50s because of how they played the game and genetic components and the type of hits that they sustain. So I think that he was just really a great model in the broadcasting world, because he could do anything. I mean, this guy hosted the Olympic Games for ABC numerous times with Jim McKay.
I wonder what he thought of Caitlyn Jenner.
That's interesting, because if I'm not mistaken, I think Frank was with ABC in the 70s for the Montreal games.
Not only that, but keep in mind that Chris was Kylie and Kendall's godmother.
How about that?
Yeah, so they were close. So
I
I would because I feel like Frank Gifford and Bruce Jenner are two men that are like the epitome of a manly man.
No doubt.
And obviously that is no longer the case for one of them, but
right.
But they really were held to those high standards of being the guy's guy and who you aspired to be like for that generation. I mean,
Well, yeah, you think about it. Frank Gifford was kind of the all-American guy that, every American woman, said, man, I would love to settle down with Frank. And then after Gifford came Joe Namath, and Namath was more of the playboy that was, he was playing in New York City. He was the toast of the town. He was the ultimate bachelor with the full mink coat and the Fu Manchu mustache and the braggadocio prediction in Super Bowl III. So Joe Willie kind of took it to another level. But Gifford was more of the all-American boy that looked the part, played the part,
He was so
and just
handsome.
was, he had it. He had that
There
it
was
factor.
an exchange in the chat room about Don Imus. What was your personal perception?
Well, there was a place called the Statler Hotel where, here I am right out of college, and hanging out with guys like Gary D and Don Imus. And they were just really pioneer broadcasters. By the way, there was a documentary recently about Mort Downey Jr. He was also in Cleveland at that time.
Oh, wow.
Mort Downey Jr., who was really kind of the Jerry Springer before there was Jerry Springer.
Yeah.
And Mort Downey was one of the most gentle, well-educated guys, well-read individuals I've ever been around, but he was nothing like the personality he was on the air. He was a guy that could talk politics, history, very gentlemanly, but when he went on the air, he was outrageous. So Mort Downey, you're looking at notables that would eventually go on to national fame, like Mort Downey, Don Imus. Gary D had a very big influence on the likes of Howard Stern. So it was a real hub for radio personalities at that time. And Imus was just, I remember he wore this really outrageously long tie in a commercial. It was like 6 feet long. And he was popular, but he wasn't as popular as Gary D at that time. But then he made the move to New York, and then his career kind of mushroomed in a big way and became a national personality.
Well, I don't want to keep you for too much longer because you've you've been very gracious with your time, but if layman's dummy's guide to what's going on in sports right now for this girl.
Well, it's football, and football. ASU, and I know you're going to be excited about this because the college football playoff is coming to Glendale.
Oh, yeah.
And there's one national analyst that believes the Sun Devils will be in the top 4. It's now a 14 playoff. He thinks ASU will be in that playoff, and we're going to get into that. We're also wrapping up Cardinals training camp, so we'll hear from Coach Arians. We've got the D-back St. Louis Cardinals, and we got another preseason game against the Raiders coming up Sunday.
I know. I'm so sad about that.
Yeah. But another big football weekend, and we are a little over a week away from the opener for ASU against Texas A&M. So a lot going on.
Well, I'm just riveted by this new football thing that I've decided, this new hobby I've taken on.
There you go. You are going to be wearing eye black before the season is over. Eye black is, the players put on the eye black.
Oh, I know. We're
going to get you a helmet, eye black, and
I've
shoulder pads.
started buying cute maroon clothes.
Yes,
I'm so
look out.
ashamed of myself.
You are going to look the part by the end of this football season.
I know.
And wearing eye black, you're going to be so into it.
I will look so cute in eye black, FYI.
Oh, no, you
FYI
are going to
black.
get quite a response in News Now with the eye black. I'm bringing the eye black in some nights, so beware.
I was just going to use my eyeliner, but that's fine too.
That can work.
I'm just going to, when they
That
come
happens
back.
after a long night.
Yeah.
I'll leave it on that. I'll leave on that note.
Right. In Jude realm, I'm going to play President Obama with the Phoenix Mercury next, if you can give me 2 seconds to find it. But thank you so much to Jude for his time. I love him desperately. He's my bud. And that was so nice of him to spend some time with us. If I can find Obama with the Phoenix Mercury, I know it's just a few minutes long. Hopefully it's not lost. Give me 2 more seconds. If I can't find it in 2 seconds, I'm going to let it go, but I found it. Thank you for your patience. And this is President Obama with the Phoenix Mercury. And then we're still having some weather headlines. So after this, we'll go do we've got Skyfox up and we'll take a look at some trees that have fallen down. Take a look at that. There's some flooding happening. So as soon as this is over, we'll revisit weather. I know Eduardo A.L. loves weather in the chat room, so we will discuss that in a few minutes.
ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Hello, everybody. Well, welcome to the White House. Congratulations to the 2014 WNBA champion, Phoenix Mercury. And I want to acknowledge WNBA President Laurel Richie, Laurel, and WNBA Coach of the Year, Sandy Brondello. Yay! I would be happy to be here, except that the Mercury getting here involved beating the Chicago Sky in the finals. In fact, Diane backstage was trash-talking me. You have kept yet another Chicago sports team from getting into the White House. But there's always next year. It's been a while since the Mercury last visited here 5 years ago. And in that time, this team has appeared in 4 more Western Conference Finals. Last year, they cracked the code again. Last season, the Mercury set a WNBA record with 29 regular season wins. And obviously, their fans had their backs. Phoenix had the highest attendance rate in the league. In the Western Conference Finals, they got some payback against their arch rivals, the Minnesota Lynx, and set themselves up for the championship. But it was not always easy. Brittany Griner had a breakout season. We expected that after having seen her at Baylor. And she was tearing it up in the playoffs before going down with an injury in the finals. So in the clinching game, the rest of the team had to step up. And so Diana Taurasi was good for 24 points. She apparently can shoot the ball pretty good. With less than a minute to go, the game tied at 82. She put the Mercury ahead for good. As Coach Brondello says about Diana, when you put the ball in her hands, in the money, crunch time, she makes things happen. So these are just some outstanding basketball players. Diana and Brittany, but also Candace Dupree, Dewana Bonner, Aaron Phillip, and Penny Taylor, who sealed the championship with 2 clutch free throws. Penny said that nobody's left out anything on the Mercury. Everybody has to listen. Everybody's involved, 1 through 11. And that sense of teamwork extends to the work that they're doing in the Phoenix community as well. These women have spent more than 150 hours cleaning up courts and running basketball clinics for underserved kids and working with high school basketball teams that they adopt every year. And during the playoffs, that's okay, as an excited fan. And during the playoffs, the Mercury raised awareness for the National Bone Marrow Donor Registry by enlisting an honorary assistant coach named Mia McPolin, a 12-year-old who's waiting and hoping to find a donor. So this team, I think, is representative of what the WNBA is all about. They're doing good in their community. They're great athletes. They and women across the WNBA are changing the way that young girls, including my daughters, see themselves. And as a dad, I've witnessed the shift just in the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, in terms of it just being taken for granted that women are great athletes and great leaders. And that does not happen unless these outstanding women perform the way they do. Plus, they look so good. You know, they clean up pretty good. And so I am very pleased to congratulate this outstanding team behind me, not only for winning a championship, but for being great representatives of not only the WNBA, but of basketball as a whole. And with that, I think Diana has a few words that she's going to say. And I just want to warn, last year, somebody slipped off the podium wearing high heels. So I want you, so I just, but before anything else happens, she saved herself. I was impressed because she was coming off the second riser, but it was a little stressful. So, all right, Diana, come on.
Well, on behalf of the Phoenix Mercury and the WNBA, we want to give you a 2014 WNBA championship jersey.
Nice.
It's an XL. So we might have to get on the Atkins, but thank you very much for having us, Mr. President.
Thank you so much.
It's an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you. Let's strike this podium. Shouldn't somebody be holding trophy while you're over here? There we go. All right. Everybody. All right.
And we are looking at Skyfox heading home. They are, we send them out sometimes to storm chase. They are done for the evening, but we're going to get to enjoy some of the view along the way. Also, I have Tower Cam still available, and Tower Cam looks beautiful as well. Let me just drop that lower third, I apologize. But this is the current skies via Tower Cam that look like cotton candy. Beautiful. Here we go too with movement. It's obviously more fun when you see mountains and things because it gives you definition. But we are recovering from a day or an afternoon of chaotic weather. But it is awfully beautiful outside.
So the incredulous wind couple.
Speaking of chaotic weather, let's get an update out of New Orleans. It's been 10 years since Katrina.
10 years and $100 billion in damages later, the city of New Orleans is making a comeback, but the progress is slow.
Trying to get employees back so we could open, that was a big problem. We had a lot of problems.
From spoiled food to damage caused by water and wind, the problems faced by Mother's Restaurant in 2005 seemed insurmountable. But the owners knew if they were going to reopen, it had to be with the help of their employees.
I thank God for him, because if it wouldn't have been for Jerry, we wouldn't have no place to stay.
Jerry Amato packed 9 FEMA trailers into this small parking lot so his workers who lost homes would have a place to stay while they rebuilt their lives and livelihoods.
The pictures of our children and the picture of my mother, I'll never get that back. We lost a lot of things that we'll never be able to replace.
Pearlie King did not work at Mother's when Katrina struck, but joined the 100-person staff when she saw how well the business took care of her sister, Patricia. The pair lost everything that day, and even a decade later, the thoughts of Katrina continue to haunt them both.
You thought she was in a horror movie or something, but it wasn't no movie because this is real. It was real.
President Obama meeting with survivors of Katrina today. Meanwhile, there'll be other events commemorating the storm all weekend long. In New Orleans, Joel Waldman, Fox News.
Let's take a look at some local stories from this evening, and I've even got some from yesterday that we didn't get to. We had a big packed night last night full of town hall meetings and presidential candidates trying to get our vote. I think we're going to have to be dealing with that a lot for the next year. But who's not interested in NASA stories?
On a future mission to Mars, there can't be much room for error, although any mission may be a decade or two away. NASA's already testing its Orion spacecraft, including the parachutes, which would bring humans back safely to Earth.
And parachutes are key. What if something went wrong with one of those parachutes and there are only a few of them to work in the first place? NASA is testing a scenario here in the Arizona desert. Andrew Hasman was at the Yuma Proving Ground this morning for the test.
From 35,000 feet up, the capsule glided back to the ground. This is as close to a real-world test as NASA can get here on Earth.
At a quick glance, right, all the systems that needed to deployed.
But now the hard work begins. Engineers will be examining the capsule and the parachutes, going over mounds of data to see if their designs can withstand all the challenges space travel can bring. This morning's test was months, even years in the making. We were given access to the mock space capsule while it was loaded on an Air Force cargo plane.
The entire setup weighs about 33,338 pounds.
Michelle Parker is part of the team that's designing the parachute system. Normally, the spacecraft would have a number of parachutes, including 3 main chutes. Today, it was tested with only 2 main chutes.
We don't want to develop a system that doesn't have any fail-safes. We don't want to develop a system where if one thing goes wrong, we can't recover from it.
NASA doesn't leave much to chance. Every aspect of this test is well planned and documented. They're outfitting the plane and the test capsule with dozens of high-definition cameras. The goal, if anything goes wrong, they'll know exactly what happened. NASA's Orion spacecraft is designed to take humans further into space than ever before.
Our goal is to explore an asteroid in 2025 and then go to Mars in the 2030s.
Watching today's parachute test, 2 of NASA's astronauts. Victor Glover, who just became an astronaut in July, may be one of the first to fly on Orion.
As humans, we just have a natural tendency to be curious, you know. If I built the wall up right here, we would all want to know what's on the other side of that wall. And once we got over the wall, we'd be looking out to the horizon going, I can get beyond that. And it's in our nature.
The mock capsule used in today's test at the Yuma Proving Ground is about the same size as the real thing. On a future mission to Mars, 4 astronauts could spend as long as a year traveling inside.
That's the whole reason that NASA's doing all of this, is to be able to kind of press those edges of what we know is possible.
Astronaut Doug Wheelock knows the pressure and stress those on a future Orion mission could face. He's flown on the space shuttle and spent 6 months on the International Space Station. Even though a mission to Mars may be 10 to 15 years away, what we may gain, he says, is worth the effort.
What we learn in that 15 years on that journey is going to revolutionize the way that we take care of our own planet.
If everything stays on schedule and goes according to plan, we should see these parachutes bringing humans back to Earth from Mars sometime in the 2030s. At the Yuma Proving Ground, I'm Andrew Hasbun, Fox 10 News.
Thank you, Andrew. Andrew is back from a vacation. I told him I missed him. He said he didn't miss me. He was kidding. It made me laugh. He was kidding. This is actually, let me confirm. This is what I didn't play for you. I meant to play this for you a second ago, and I didn't. Amateur hour, Kinsey, amateur hour. Let's get this for you right now.
Yeah, we had some pretty good pockets of very heavy rain, and then we had some good pockets of very substantial rain as well. As you can see here, up in the Wickenburg area, just a little bit to the northwest of there, 87/100ths of an inch in that area. In Buckeye, they had 59/100ths of an inch. In Surprise, they've had more than this, but in a short time, they had a half an inch in about 12 minutes. So they had a lot of problems with that. And then, as we mentioned, in Tempe, 79/100ths of an inch in that Tempe moisture, coming almost exactly at that US 60 and Priest. Take a look at that storm system as it rolls through Surprise. There is some rain left over in that area. That system moves into and through Phoenix, and you can see Scottsdale. There's Scottsdale Air Park up there. Pretty heavy stuff rolling through, and then just getting the rain. Look at Tempe right here. That's where that heavy stuff hit, and as you can see, as these colors enhance, that's where the heaviest rain is. And right there, there's that very, very heavy stuff, and of course that's the US 60. So we're seeing some very heavy rain along that. There's your eastern portion of the state, Heber, Show Low, Globe, getting some of this very heavy moisture as well. To the south of us, we continue to see that moisture come up. There had been a pretty big batch in this area right here, but as you can see, evaporating out a little bit, we do continue to see that moisture hanging on in some areas. This is Sky Harbor, and you can see clear for a little while, and then as the rains come in, big storms roll through very, very rapidly, looking at a lot of rain in that area. We move up into the Scottsdale area, Paradise Valley, and we are clear. And then, of course, you can see the rain moving in to those areas as well. And we get down in here into the East Valley and give you a look at the way things are right now, moving in very, very heavy at first, and then moving in a little bit more slowly after that. And of course, we do have some moisture to the north of us as well. We'll have more on this storm coming up.
All right, Dave.
Thank you, Dave Muncy. He is always on top of it. I know that this was such an upsetting story to cover, these riots in this jail in Eloy. Let's take a look at the update in regards to that. Doug Ducey is severing ties with this private prison.
Well, you may remember the mass riots at a Kingman prison last month. They caused extensive damage to that prison, actually forced the state to close it down and move more than 1,000 inmates to a different location.
Kingman.
Well, today comes the fallout. The company that managed that prison, it's a private company, basically got fired by the state after a report was released revealing all kinds of problems with the way they were running that prison. Danielle Miller joins us live now with the details on what happened today. Danielle?
Yeah, Troy, this report was conducted by the Department of Corrections. Now, Governor Ducey says what happened in Kingman during those riots was frightening, disturbing, and unacceptable. And this report was to air the facts and make sure nothing was swept under the rug.
Our actions should send a loud warning shot to all prison operators. Fail in your job, and we will hold you accountable. Risk public safety, and we will end your relationship with the state of Arizona.
Governor Doug Ducey terminating the state's contract with Management and Training Corporation, the group that operates Arizona State Prison in Kingman. This after several riots broke out in early July. Those riots left housing units so badly damaged that more than 1,200 prisoners had to be moved to other facilities. Ducey toured the facility shortly after the riots and asked Director of the Department of Corrections Charles Ryan to conduct a full report.
Director Ryan and his team conducted approximately 300 interviews with employees of the prison operator, MTC, and some 400 interviews with actual inmates. They reviewed thousands of pages of MTC documents.
That report found more than a third of MTC performance discrepancies identified in 2010 after 3 inmates escaped from the same facility and killed a New Mexico couple are still the same 5 years later. Another alarming find, the state said the prison completed none of the mandated supervisor training for the 2015 fiscal year.
Crisis intervention is a 2-day block, 16 hours worth of instruction that involves role-playing, classroom instruction, understanding how to deal with inmate behavior, and it's 16 hours. MTC condensed it to 90 minutes.
And aside from the prison in Kingman, there's a total of 5 other private prisons in the state, one of those being in Marana, which is also operated by MTC. Now, Ducey says this termination in Kingman will not affect this prison. Now, Ducey says similar assessments for all of the other private prisons already have begun. He also says the MTC will be responsible to pay for all of the damages to the prison and not the taxpayers. The state will now start the legal process and begin its search for a new management group. Reporting live, Danielle Miller, Fox 10 News.
All new tonight at 9, a breakdown in negotiations between public school districts and the state, now sending both parties back to court.
The schools are saying the state owes them nearly $1 billion, but Governor Ducey says he has a different plan. Jessica Flores joins us now with some details on what's going on here. Jess?
Hey, John, Troy, good evening. Now, this issue started years before Governor Doug Ducey ever took office. Voters approved a measure forcing the state to increase school funding at the rate of inflation. But during the recession, lawmakers put that on hold. Now schools say they are owed back the money. Ducey says his plan will help fix the problem.
First thing we have to do is to have the state land trust proposal pass. If it does pass, I think you'll be able to see that we're going to be able to make a case that will lead the country in terms of new dollars into the classroom.
Arizona Governor Doug Ducey today pushing his idea to use money from land trust sales to fund education and possibly settle a years-long lawsuit between school groups and the legislature. This week, 7 months of negotiations to work out a deal crumbled.
It's frustrating, especially frustrating to the students of Arizona and the teachers of Arizona and the parents of Arizona.
The Arizona School Board Association says the state is on the hook for at least $300 million owed to schools from last year alone. Governor Doug Ducey says his proposal will boost school funding by $2 billion over the next 10 years. Republican leaders in the state legislature say they agree with the idea.
Well, our office has called for them to settle the lawsuit and to start paying teachers and stop paying attorneys. We're going to do what we can take charge of and move the state trust, the land trust idea forward.
Meanwhile, Arizona ranks 50th in state funding per pupil, less than any other state in the nation. Governor Doug Ducey will not commit to using the state's budget surplus to settle the suit. And he refuses to raise taxes.
We're not going to raise taxes. We're not going to be raising taxes.
And now that those negotiations have failed, the issue goes back to court. Lawmakers are appealing the court order to pay the school that $300 million. Reporting live, I'm Jessica Flores, Fox 10 News.
Jessica Flores just walked in the door. I love Jessica Flores. She's one of my favorite reporters in the world. We're going to go national. Let's take a look at, I haven't had an update in a while, and I don't think I've ever discussed it here, on the Lois Lerner private email account. So Lois Lerner, well, you'll see in this package, but let's just jump to national really quick.
Fox News has confirmed former IRS official Lois Lerner used an email account bearing her dog's name, Toby, a second private account to conduct official business. In a court filing last night responding to a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit, an IRS attorney wrote, quote, in addition to emails to or from an email account denominated Lois G. Lerner or Lois Home, some emails responsive to Judicial Watch's request may have been sent to or received from a personal email account denominated Toby Miles. Tom Fitton from conservative watchdog Judicial Watch calls that stunning.
The IRS has been stonewalling, obstructing our Freedom of Information Act lawsuit for years now. They told us Lois Lerner emails were missing, and then they told us they were unmissing, and they've been stalling the production of those emails.
House Oversight Chairman Republican Jason Chaffetz has already threatened to impeach IRS Commissioner John Koskinen if President Obama doesn't fire him.
Under a Freedom of Information Act, that should be publicly available information. You should not have to go to a federal judge to pry it out of the IRS. That's neither open nor is it transparent.
Lerner told the Oversight Committee in 2013 she did not break any laws, but has on 2 occasions refused to answer questions from lawmakers. Congressional investigators accuse Lerner of using her position to improperly influence agency action against only conservative groups seeking tax-exempt status.
There has to be accountability. There has to be.
Investigators were aware of this Toby Miles address because Lerner had emailed to and from it with her official account. But just how much she used this private account is unclear. In Washington, Mike Emanuel, Fox News.
Let's see. I can honestly say I've never used my email address for my dog, Style Schofield, to do anything salacious. That's very interesting. A lot of interesting email scandals coming out of Washington. Let's see, do I have in any of my, do I have any Hillary email scandal packages? Let's see. Because that would have been a nice transition, wouldn't it? But alas, I don't. We can jump into some politics, though. That sounds like a good idea.
In remote Elkader, Iowa, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee held the typical caucus meet and greet, a modest breakfast crowd of a couple dozen, and shrugged off all the hype and huge crowds following the frontrunner, Donald Trump.
The way you win Iowa is not by how many minutes of TV time. You win Iowa by having people who show up in caucus for you on that cold February night.
With crowds in the thousands, $4,000 in Dubuque last night, Trump's brought new attention to outsider candidates, but mocked his 16 rivals when it comes to their turnout.
They make a speech in front of 21 people. Nobody cares.
But Trump's not the only candidate who's never held political office. Businesswoman Carly Fiorina has an event herself in Iowa tonight. She's been steadily rising in the polls and has the added distinction of being the only woman in the GOP field.
It is my single greatest asset. I've never held public office. People are sick of politics, and they're sick of politicians.
Another political newcomer, retired neurosurgeon Ben Carson, also draws big crowds. His team boasts grassroots organizers in all 99 Iowa counties and more than half of the 1,700 caucus precincts. Once Iowa's frontrunner, Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker has slipped in the polls during Trump's surge. His campaign today consisted of 6 meet and greets at restaurants and diners, small crowds but lots of them. Trump knocks Walker for his budget and other problems in Wisconsin.
And just because he's using old talking points from the Democrats doesn't make them accurate.
People have really looked seriously at what's going on in Wisconsin, and that has not been helpful to them.
Trump also went after Jeb Bush as low energy and Marco Rubio, who was once Bush's protege and is now running against him.
I would really go after that guy. I'd say he's the most disloyal guy. He's a terrible person. He's horrible, and I hate him.
Trump's rally was raucous, but it was the news conference and when he had Univision anchor Jorge Ramos ejected for refusing to wait his turn to ask a question that had political tongues wagging today.
Excuse me, sit down. You weren't called. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Go ahead. No, you don't. You haven't been called. Go back to Univision.
That made it hard for the other 16 to squeeze into today's headlines. Yes, go ahead. Trump was asked today about whether to trim some of the fat in the federal budget, it would be worth refusing to raise the federal debt limit. He said it would be worth the fight, pushing the envelope yet again. In Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Carl Cameron, Fox News. Trump today was asked.
Kentucky Senator Rand Paul is in the middle of a West Coast swing that he hopes will ignite his campaign for the Republican presidential nomination. Dropping to 10th place according to the latest Real Clear Politics average, Paul is taking his message of more liberty and less government to a region where party loyalty can be surpassed by an independent streak.
A lot of people came west to get away from big government, so I think that fits right in with my message.
Dr. Paul drew 500 people in Anchorage, then several hundred more in Seattle, and another good crowd in Spokane, Washington. He's running hard in states that hold caucuses instead of primaries. There are also places where his father, Ron Paul, did well in 2012. The eye surgeon is trying to thread a needle with his views on national defense. While saying he's not an isolationist, Paul rails against the wars in the Middle East, along with interventions in Libya and Syria.
If you're eager for war, there will always be a Bush or a Clinton for you.
In what is shaping up to be the year of the outsider, Rand Paul continues to go after members of both parties for what he calls an unholy alliance that is both pro-war and pro-spending. And he says the way to grow the Republican Party is to fight for the whole Bill of Rights, not just the Second Amendment. Paul is also not shy about going after current GOP frontrunner Donald Trump, whom he likes to call a fake conservative.
Ultimately, as Republicans, we're going to have to decide we want a candidate who can actually win. You know, the guy with orange hair that's leading right now, he actually does very poorly against Hillary Clinton.
Senator Paul will finish out west with stops in Idaho, Wyoming, and Utah. Campaign officials say he'll be back in the region after the next Republican debate. In Seattle, Dan Springer, Fox News.
Leadership means you got to be all in. It's not about yapping. It's not about talking. It's about doing.
With Tropical Storm Erica taking aim at South Florida, Jeb Bush today touted his leadership dealing with severe storms. Experience, he insists, would serve him well as president.
This is the experience that's etched in my soul. I could do this in my sleep.
In 2004, 4 major storms hit Florida in 6 weeks. Charlie, Francis, Ivan, Jeannie. Bush earned high marks for his swift and aggressive response.
Jeb was awesome. He was all over the state. Everywhere you turn, there he was, forcing everybody, let's get back to work.
I think that he was a strong leader. I think he's been a strong leader as a governor and in everything he's done.
But even as he seeks to elevate himself above the crowd with his extensive management experience, Bush is still down in the mud, trading barbs with Donald Trump.
He had a very small crowd. He had very little enthusiasm.
This guy doesn't have a plan. He's appealing to people's angst and their anger.
Why are you, Governor Bush, in a food fight with Donald Trump?
I'm not in a food fight with the guy. I think he's the front runner, right? By all polls. And he should be held to account for his ideas. And his ideas aren't conservative ideas.
Where the fight has gotten Bush in the most trouble is on illegal immigration. Voters are taking notice.
I'm split between Donald Trump and Jeb Bush.
James Calkins is buying Trump's line for the moment that Bush is weak on illegal immigration. But he says Bush could still get his vote.
Do you believe Bush needs to be tougher on immigration?
Absolutely. I believe if Bush was tougher on immigration and would give specifics, then I can heavily support Bush due to the fact that he was a great governor of our state of Florida.
Despite Trump's rise in the poll, Bush's raucous town hall meeting in Pensacola proved there's still plenty of air left in his campaign. Watch for Bush to continue attacking Trump for being, as he says, all talk and no action, saying voters shouldn't mistake volume for leadership. Bush also told me he thought criticism of his brother in the wake of Hurricane Katrina was unfair, saying while mistakes were made at the federal level, it was clear state officials in neither Mississippi nor Louisiana were prepared. In Pensacola, Florida, John Roberts, Fox News.
Hillary Clinton tried today in Iowa to shift away from shaky poll numbers and her email fiasco by taking aim at Republican frontrunner Donald Trump.
Now, don't get distracted by the flamboyant frontrunner. Most of the other Republican candidates are just Trump without the pizzazz or the hair.
Clinton also laughed as Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack, Iowa's former governor, endorsed her and then dismissed the FBI investigation of her email server.
Trumped up charges? That's with a small t.
Laughing off the controversy at a news conference last week in Las Vegas did not help Clinton's case. And today she tried to focus less on the official email that may have contained classified information.
My use of personal email was allowed by the State Department. It clearly wasn't the best choice. I should have used 2 emails, one personal, one for work. And I take responsibility for that decision.
Republican Senator Charles Grassley is now demanding to know if the FBI has revoked her security clearance. And while Clinton insists only reporters care about the emails, the trouble forced her to interrupt a Hamptons vacation and board a private jet to get back on the trail. As a new Suffolk University poll here in Iowa found, 52% of Democratic voters said the email issue will hurt Clinton if she becomes the party's nominee. 36% said it will not hurt. Though the same poll also found Clinton may be solidifying her frontrunner status in Iowa. She has 54% to 20% for Democratic Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders and 11% for Vice President Joe Biden. Biden is planning to shadow Clinton ahead of the Democratic National Committee's summer meeting in Minneapolis, with Clinton, Sanders, and former Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley planning to formally address hundreds of members of the DNC on Friday. The vice president invited DNC members to join him on a conference call today to discuss the Iran nuclear deal, a chance to highlight his partnership with President Obama, as well as foreign policy credentials, as Clinton today offered her most extensive and emotional remarks about a possible Biden run.
I was at his son's funeral. I mean, I cannot even imagine the grief and the heartbreak.
Clinton stressing the vice president deserves the time and space to make this decision. Meanwhile, at that big DNC meeting on Friday, the draft Biden folks will be there urging Democrats to keep their powder dry. In Ankeny, Iowa, Ed Henry, Fox News.
I just want to briefly interrupt this marathon of politics to let you know that Ed Henry follows me on Twitter. We banter about his ties. Ed Henry is a very good journalist.
Speaking to a crowd in Cleveland, Hillary Clinton blasted Republicans who she deemed extremists.
Extreme views about women, we expect that from some of the terrorist groups. We expect that from people who don't want to live in the modern world. But it's a little hard to take coming from Republicans who want to be the president of the United States.
Her comments have already drawn criticism from the RNC and her Republican challengers, and they come on the heels of a new poll that shows her lead shrinking, with Vice President Joe Biden edging her out against the leading Republican challengers.
Hillary is showing consistent and systematic slippage in the primary polling.
But one rival is apparently not worried about Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump.
I know I'm going to win.
Instead of defending his double-digit lead in the polls at a rally in Greenville, South Carolina, Trump basked in it.
I'm not supposed to be running. It's supposed to be these politicians. They run professionally. They're professional runners.
And no matter how tough Trump talks, his supporters have clung tight according to polls.
If you're placing bets at this point, you bet on Trump sticking around.
Trump's closest competitor in the newest poll, Ben Carson, the come-from-behind retired pediatric neurosurgeon who Trump won't even criticize. In Washington, Doug McKelway, Fox News.
That's interesting. Trump, it seems, will criticize anyone, but not to criticize Ben Carson.
Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump continues to cause controversy while on the campaign trail. This as an anchor from a Hispanic TV network is thrown out of a news conference that Trump was holding in Iowa Tuesday.
Okay, who's next? Yeah, please. Excuse me, sit down. You weren't called. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Go ahead. No, you don't. You haven't been called. Go back to Univision.
Shortly after that confrontation, the anchor, Jorge Ramos, was readmitted and got into an argument with Trump about his immigration proposals as well as his popularity among Hispanics.
You say that you're going to win the Latino vote.
I think so, because I'm going to bring jobs back.
The truth is, I've seen the polls. You're losing the Latino vote. 75% of the...
I don't think I will.
No, nationwide. No, nationwide.
I haven't even started.
During the event, Trump also addressed his ongoing feud with Fox News anchor Megyn Kelly, saying he won't back down for insults he directed toward her on Twitter, posting, quote, "I like the Kelly file much better without Megyn Kelly. Perhaps she could take another 11-day unscheduled vacation."
It's a very small element in my life, Megyn Kelly. I don't care about Megyn Kelly, but no, I would not apologize. She should probably apologize to me, but I just don't care.
Fox News chief Roger Ailes releasing a statement Tuesday calling on Trump to apologize, saying, quote, "Donald Trump's surprise and unprovoked attack on Megyn Kelly during her show last night is as unacceptable as it is disturbing." In New York, Jackie Ibanez, Fox News.
Sometimes after they're done, these reporters will do teases, and I think that that's what we get. So I'm sorry if I'm not quick enough to there's my lower third, to take them off the screen before they start mouthing something else, probably like coming up next. I want to give you a quick peek of the tower cam. Look at that. How glorious is that? While I pull up Hillary Today in Cleveland for you. This is where she made those controversial comments that we were just watching about the GOP candidates perhaps being terrorists. Let's watch that.
And during that time, I thought about other college students who had parents that they could go to for their holiday breaks. And that's always a challenge for kids who are trying to pursue their higher ed that are aging out of foster care. So I'm standing here and have the opportunity to meet Hillary because of my adversity of foster care. I also wanted to bring mention to the fact that it wasn't long ago that women, we were able to vote. What, 1920? It's just 2015. We have not leaned in at the tables. We've been the housewives, the baby mamas. We've been the support systems for men for a very, very, very long time. And Hillary has taught us to diligently not just be the first lady, but be the lady. She's been the first lady, she's been the senator, she's a grandma now. Maybe we should say a glamma now, right? But I want you to think about what this opportunity does for women. And I'm not going to negate you men, but it's our time. Women, this gives us the opportunity to lean in, to get together, and really have a sisterhood. It's Hillary time. We should no longer fear being powerful. We should no longer fear the opportunity to go after our real goals and dreams. And maybe it's Congress. How often will we have a Congresswoman, Marsha Fudge, a Senator Nina Turner? And we can't allow what happened with Senator Nina Turner to happen again with Hillary Clinton. We need Hillary in office. This isn't someone who just woke up and said that I am going to be the president of the United States. This is someone who's been doing the work for a very long time, starting with the Children's Defense Fund, assisting kinship care for kin to get paid for taking in their family. In addition to that, she helped with universal health care for children a long time ago. This wasn't just health care, Obamacare. She's been there, done that. Aren't you ready for a change? Women, aren't you ready for a change? So, I mean, I really don't have to go through her accolades anymore. You know who she is. You know her resiliency. You know that she doesn't give up. You know that she constantly goes after her goals and dreams, and that she has fought for us, even in the midst of losing. Like, really, who would work for someone they went against? That's right, Secretary of the State. I need you guys to get engaged, get enlightened. And even if you don't understand what's going on in politics, because I don't understand all that stuff. I mean, understand that she's for the have-nots and for the haves. But if you're a have-not, you understand the challenges that it takes to get to your next level. Women, lean in. This is our time. This is a time when you need to be in your beauty salon, your nail salons, getting together, rallying up women to really put a woman in office. I mean, after all, we carried the presidents that ran the world. It's time to have a woman. So without further ado, my president, your president, the first woman president for the United States, Hillary Clinton!
Whoa, what do you think about that? I gotta tell you, Kevin, that was amazing. It was an incredible honor to be introduced by you, someone who I have first met years ago, someone who is dedicated to making it possible for more young people to have a chance if they end up in foster care. As Kevin said, this is an issue that's real personal with me. I've worked on it since I was a young lawyer right out of law school working for the Children's Defense Fund. I've always believed that when a child has to go into foster care, that child becomes our child. and that every single person should look for ways to help them overcome their struggles. You know, my mom, who was abandoned and rejected by her own parents and then by her grandparents, ended up at the age of 14 working as a housemaid. Probably if she'd been born later, she would have ended up in foster care. And when I learned about the struggles of my own mother's life, I knew that part of what I wanted to do for my life was to help every single child live up to his or her God-given potential. And that has been my mission. I spent a lot of time working on foster care issues in Arkansas as First Lady, as Senator, because the system has failed too many people. As Kevany said, 13 placements, 5 high schools, and yet she ended up going to college. It did take her 7 years. But you know what happens to a lot of kids across our country? They age out of foster care at 18. And then somebody shows up literally with a black plastic garbage bag and says to this young person, put your belongings in there, you're finished. And where are they supposed to go? What are they supposed to do? And you know, the ones like Kevany who, through grit and grace, find their way to college. You heard what she said. Where's she supposed to go on Thanksgiving and Christmas? Who takes her in? I want to let you know that as your president, I will first and foremost be a champion for our children. I don't care who you are, where you're from, what your circumstances might be. The first obligation of any nation is to take care of those in the years of their early lives and their later lives. So we will together continue to try to make it possible for more young people to come out like Kevany has, dedicated, strong, and committed to helping others. Kevany, we're behind you 1,000%, and I will do whatever I can in whatever capacity to help you. I am thrilled to be back in Cleveland and in Ohio with so many friends. I love coming here. I love seeing the progress. I love seeing the new construction here in this area. And I love knowing that you've got dedicated leaders like your fantastic Congresswoman, Marcia Fudge. Nobody fights harder for Ohio families. I love working with her. I can't wait to be president and have her as my partner. Because we're going to have an urban strategy. We're going to figure out what we can do, especially to help great cities like Cleveland fulfill its potential. Build partnerships and opportunities for everybody to get ahead and stay ahead. That's the basic bargain of America. That's the bargain I want to be sure we keep. I'm also personally delighted to be here with my friend and your former governor, Ted Strickland. And I know because I watched him as governor. I campaigned for him as governor. He campaigned for me. I've spent a lot of time with him. Nobody cares more deeply and profoundly about what happens to people. He did a great job as your governor, and he will be an important voice in the Senate. I hope you will do everything you can to help Ted get elected to the United States Senate. But I can't recognize two of my friends who are here today without also mentioning two who are not. We just lost the late, great Louis Stokes. He was Cleveland's congressman, and he was America's conscience. He did so much to deal with the problems that our economy presents and our society still, unfortunately, has. And for me, whenever I think of Cleveland, I always think of my dear friend, who I literally miss every single day, Stephanie Tubbs Jones, your former Congresswoman. Boy, Stephanie was a lot of fun. Probably a lot of you never got a chance to meet her personally. She had the greatest laugh. She made me a better person. She made nearly everybody she dealt with better people. I'll never forget, I came here to Cleveland in 2004 after the election, which was so close and Ohio was so pivotal, to have a hearing with Stephanie about voting. Because there were lots of reports that young people and African Americans in Ohio were waiting in line for hours to vote. University campuses didn't have enough machines, didn't have enough places. But right next door, people showed up and could vote in 10 minutes. 10 hours versus 10 minutes. And I see some heads nodding who remember that. Stephanie and I listened to the stories, mostly from students, mostly from African Americans, some of whom showed up with flyers telling them the wrong time and day to vote. They brought it as evidence that in this great democracy, the longest democracy in the history of the world, there were people who got up every day trying to think about, instead of getting people to vote, to exercise their constitutional rights and responsibilities, to stop them from voting. Well, I'll tell you what, we're still in the midst of that. If Stephanie were here today, just like Marcia does every day, she would be standing up, speaking out. It's wrong. Republicans are doing everything they can to prevent people of color, young people, people with disabilities, older people from voting. It's disgraceful, and as president, I will do everything I can to make it possible for everybody to vote, and I want to see universal registration for all 18-year-olds so that you are recognized as a citizen. This is going to be a big part of this election. You know, folks don't prevent you from voting just for the fun of it. They prevent you from voting because they don't think you'll vote for them. So we're going to have to really stand up on, I don't care what you are, Democrat, Republican, Independent, Green, you name it. Everybody should be encouraged to vote. Otherwise, our democracy doesn't work the way it should. And that's what we're going to be pushing through this election and then when I'm in the White House. Now, I want to mention a few other people who are in our thoughts and prayers. You know, yesterday, once again, this time horrifically on live television, we saw the terrible consequences of gun violence in America. I don't know how we keep seeing shooting after shooting, read about the people murdered because they went to Bible study, or they went to the movies, or they were just doing their job, and not finally say, we got to do something about this. It's not just the deaths that are in the headlines. Most of you in this audience know we lose people to gun violence every day. Sometimes they're murdered, sometimes they kill themselves. Sometimes they do both, as the man yesterday did. I know that we have a majority of Americans and a majority of gun owners who support universal background checks in America. And I strongly believe we've got to have common sense reforms to keep weapons out of the hands of criminals, the violently unstable, domestic abusers, and even terrorists who find it pretty easy in our country to get a hold of a weapon if they so choose. It's time to really come to grips with this. It makes no sense that bipartisan legislation supporting universal background checks failed in Congress despite overwhelming support from the public. It makes no sense. We couldn't come together to keep guns out of the hands of domestic abusers, people even with court orders against them. Now, I know politics are hard. I've got the scars to prove that. And I know when it comes to gun violence, except for Moms Who Demand Action and other groups who have not given up, a lot of people just basically say, you know, it's just too hard. We're not going to try this again. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to keep going. I am not giving up. I'm not going to sit by while more good people die and they get 24 or 48 or 72 hours of TV coverage, and then we all just say, well, there's nothing we can do until the next time people are murdered by gun violence. Here in Cleveland, you know this. Tamir Rice isn't here either. He should be. He should be healthy. He should be alive. As a mother and now as a grandmother, as a human being, for goodness sakes, my heart breaks for all the young people, in fact, for everyone who has been shot down in this senseless violence. We've got to come to terms with some hard truths about race and justice in America, just like we've got to come to terms with hard truths about guns in America. And we do have to stand up and say loudly and clearly, Black Lives Matter. You know, all of these issues, race and justice, guns, voting rights, our trust or lack of trust between us, that really matters. They have to be at the heart of this election. You don't hear much from Republicans about any of this, do you? You don't hear about the real pressures facing families or the challenges facing our communities. And at the recent debates, if you actually could sit through them, you did not hear a single word, not a single word about how to lower the costs of college and how to save people money so that they could lower their interest rates. And so I will certainly be happy to meet with you later, but I'm going to keep talking. Now, I also struggled to hear them say anything about getting the cost of prescription drugs down. I didn't hear them say anything about equal pay for equal work for women. I didn't hear any of them say anything about raising the federal minimum wage so people who work full-time could actually get out of poverty. I didn't hear them say anything about what's really going on in the lives of Americans. Now, I will have to tell you, what do they stand for? I think it's pretty clear. Cut taxes on the super wealthy. Get out of the way of corporations. Let them do whatever they want to do. Well, we've heard that before, and it hasn't worked, has it? You know, I know a little bit about what it takes to be a Democratic president because I know two of them in the last 35 years real well. And I can remember after my husband was elected, within about 24, 48 hours, he got some information that hadn't been available before. And he said to me, it's so much worse than they told us. The deficit was worse. The debt had been quadrupled. In fact, he looked at me and he says, you know, they're just passing it off and moving on. Well, but he went to work, didn't he? The longest peacetime expansion of jobs in American history, 23 million new jobs for young people, for older people, for everybody willing to work. And incomes rose from the bottom, from the middle, and from the top. And then we had a Republican president. We all know what happened there. I remember a few days after the 2008 election, and President Obama called me and said, can you come see me in Chicago? I had no idea why he was asking me. I thought maybe because I was going to be in the Senate from New York, and we'd figure out how we were going to push health care and other important priorities. And first thing out of his mouth is, they didn't tell us how bad it was. And he was facing the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. And I don't think President Obama gets the credit he deserves for pulling us out of that ditch. Now, I'm not running for my husband's third term, and I'm not running for President Obama's third term. I'm running for my first term, but I think it's always useful if somebody running for president actually looked at the evidence, don't you? What works and what doesn't work. And trickle-down economics is one of the worst ideas of the 1980s, and we should not let it come back. So when you hear these Republicans, listen closely, because I can't hear them talking about anything real, anything that'll work, anything that'll improve the lives of the young people in this audience so that you have the future you deserve. Don't be distracted by the flamboyant front runner. If you look at their policies, most of the other candidates are just Trump without the pizzazz or the hair. It is a great reality TV show, isn't it? In between him insulting everybody. So I am looking at what's going to matter. Nothing matters more than renewing the basic bargain of America, building on the work that President Obama has done, getting back to making it possible for hardworking people and families to get ahead and stay ahead. And I also have to admit, I take it a little personal when they go after women. When they go after women's health, women's rights, you know, this is happening all over the country, here even in Ohio. Programs and services to help women take care of themselves are being cut down. Marco Rubio brags about wanting to deny victims of rape and incest access to health care, to an abortion. Jeb Bush says Planned Parenthood shouldn't get a penny. Your governor right here in Ohio banned state funding for some rape crisis centers because they sometimes refer women to other health facilities that do provide abortions. I would like these Republican candidates to look the mom in the eye who caught her breast cancer early because she was able to get a screening for cancer. Or the teenager who didn't get pregnant because she had access to contraception. Or anyone who's ever been protected by an HIV test. Now, extreme views about women, we expect that from some of the terrorist groups. We expect that from people who don't want to live in the modern world. But it's a little hard to take coming from Republicans who want to be the president of the United States, yet they espouse out-of-date and out-of-touch policies. They are dead wrong for 21st century America. We're going forward. We're not going back. And I personally was both relieved and proud when the Supreme Court upheld the right to marriage equality. And as president, I will defend marriage equality, and I will work to end discrimination against the LGBT community. You don't hear that from the other side of the aisle. This election can't be a race to the bottom. It has to be about strengthening our families, making sure all of our kids have health care and education, a chance to be the most they can be. It's got to be about the right vision for America and who has the skill and determination to lead us there. Other candidates may be out fighting for a particular ideology, but I'm fighting for you. I'm running for president to deliver real results for hardworking American families, so when you do your part, you can get ahead and stay ahead. That is the basic bargain. This is not a new fight for me. As Kevin said, I've been doing this a long time. When I got out of law school, I did go straight to the Children's Defense Fund. I was the chair of the Legal Services Corporation, appointed by President Carter. I started the Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families. As First Lady, I worked hard to reform our adoption and foster care system so kids would not be left out and left behind. And I had the great honor of being one of the people responsible for the Children's Health Insurance Program. I learned those values. I learned those values from my parents, and those values are timeless. They can lead us where we need to go. Of course, things change. Who could have imagined where technology has taken us? But when you get right down to it, what matters is our relationships. What matters is how we treat each other. What matters is the kind of people we are and the kind of world we want to help create. I think about that every day on the campaign trail. And I want to make sure that my new granddaughter has every opportunity she can possibly have, and hopefully she'll have the character and the work ethic to make the most of them. But I'm the granddaughter of a factory worker from Scranton, Pennsylvania. He worked in the lace mills, and he worked really hard. But he always believed his hard work would pay off for his kids. So my dad got to go to college. He went to play football, but he got to go to college. I love looking at those old pictures, those leather helmets that they wore back in the 30s. And then he became a salesman, worked hard again. Then he went into the Navy during World War II and was a chief petty officer. And then when he got out, he started a really small business, but it provided a good middle-class life. I want the middle class to mean something again. And you should not have to be the granddaughter of a former president to believe that America still holds promise for you. You should be able to be the granddaughter of a factory worker or the grandson of a farm worker. If you're willing to do your part, you want to believe, and it should be real, that our country has your back. I know there's a lot of disillusionment about politics. That kind of comes with the DNA of being an American. I think the founders wrote skepticism into the system. Checks and balances, separation of powers. It's one of the reasons we've survived. I mean, we kind of, bumble back and forth, but we always figure out where we're headed. There's that quote attributed to Winston Churchill, you can always count on the Americans. They end up doing the right thing after trying nearly everything else. Well, that sometimes is frustrating, and particularly if you're in it, but also as you're watching it. But it has kept us going, and it has held out opportunity to generation after generation. So I want you to be part of this campaign. I'm here to ask for your help. We're going to fight hard in Ohio. We're going to fight hard from the primary. We're going to fight hard until we win in November of 2016. I want you to spread the word. I want you to join. You can do it right now. Text Ohio to 47246. Then you can go to HillaryClinton.com for more information. I want to help young people believe, once again, we can make a difference together. I will never forget what Ohio did for me in 2008. You lifted me up when I was down and out. And on that primary night, which held out such an incredible validation in that victory, I spoke for myself and I spoke for everyone else. Anyone who's ever been knocked down but refused to be knocked out. I want you to remember Kevin E.'s story. I got to be honest with you. If I'd been put in foster care when I was 13, if I'd been in 13 placements in 5 high schools, I don't know that I'd have had the gumption and the grace and the grit and the poise and the confidence to come up and speak to hundreds and hundreds of people like she did. But I remember what my mother told me. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can control how you react and what you do. I've tried to live by that, and I think that's what Cleveland and Ohio prove every day. You guys have been through some tough times over the last decades, but I don't see anybody lying down and giving up. I see new architecture. I see new buildings going up. My gosh, you even got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, for heaven's sakes. Well, I'm running for president to fight for America, to fight for Ohio, to fight for Cleveland. I'm running for president for every person, the struggling, the striving, and the successful. And we're going to build an America where if you do your part, you do that hard work, you are going to get ahead again. And if you've got lots of debt because you're trying to improve yourself and go to college, we're going to get that down. We're going to refinance that debt. And we're going to make college affordable so that everybody can have the same dream. The dream that I had. The dream that everybody deserves to have. So it's great being back here on this cool summer day. And I can't wait to come back time and time again. I'm looking forward to working with elected officials, with the clergy, with business leaders, with young people, with your great academic and medical institutions. Because I want to be your partner, not just in this campaign, but in the White House. So, Cleveland, Ohio, let's go build America and take back the opportunity and promise that should be our birthright. Thank you all, and God bless you.
Where do they get this music from? They need to consult with me next time. I'll be like, hey, I've got some cool tunes for you. Check out this Beaver on my iPod. Beauty and the Beat, that would be a nice, like, Hillary song. Show you off. I'm not going to sing for you. I'm not going to do that. This just got weird. Unfortunately, the real party happened before I even entered the premises today. This is a little bit of Donald Trump action from earlier on FNN, and I wasn't in the building yet, so I wonder if this lower third still exists. Pardon me while I look. No, it doesn't. I'm gonna make you one right now.
Buddy? How are you? Okay, questions?
Gun violence to start with, and what happened down in Virginia.
Well, I believe very strongly in the Second Amendment. We have people with mental disabilities, mental problems. It's too bad somebody can't figure that out. But we have a serious mental problem. And I'll tell you what, we better start figuring it out fast.
Mr. Trump,
yes, go ahead.
You have said that you never asked God for forgiveness. Why do you think the evangelicals love you so much?
I don't know. I just did so well with the evangelicals in the poll. I love them. They love me. I am Protestant. I am Presbyterian. I love the evangelicals, and it's really shown in the polls. And why do they love me? You'll have to ask them. But they do.
Forgiveness. Did you absolutely never ask you?
They do love me. Thank you.
You see nice things about Ben Carson. Is he your first choice rookie?
Well, I like Ben Carson very much. He's a really fine man. He's a friend of mine. He's doing well also, and I like Ben Carson.
Would
Good
you
man.
choose him for VP?
I'm not thinking about that right now. I have too many other things.
Cherish women, you'll take care of them if you're elected president. How would you do that? Why?
Well, if you look at Jeb Bush, where he said he wouldn't fund women's health care issues, okay, and women's health issues, I thought that was a terrible thing for him to say. And nobody will take care of women. I cherish women, and I say it all the time. I cherish women. I will take care of women. And I won't be going around saying I'm not going to fund a certain program. Women under my administration will be taken care of. Not like Jeb Bush. What he said was a disgrace.
Mr. Trump, in the South Carolina primary, Politico reported last month that you appeared at a fundraiser for SWIMPAC that's dedicated to getting elected. Why are you?
Well, all I do is some meet and greets. I mean, people ask me when I come in, when I say hello. So I do meet and greets. But as you know, other than the little donations where people send in $7 $10 and $20 and even, in some cases hundreds of dollars. All I do is I will do on occasion a meet and greet. Yes, sir, go ahead.
There's a requirement in the South Carolina Republican Party that candidates sign a pledge that they will support the eventual nominee. Will you sign that pledge?
Well, we have plenty of time to think about it because I think that's September 30th and there's a lot of time. So we'll be making announcements on different things over the next couple of weeks.
We seem to be getting a lot of support, Mr. Trump. We seem to be getting a lot of support, or growing support, from radical right-wing groups, some white supremacist groups, neo-Nazi groups. Does this concern you?
That I don't know about. I mean, you're telling me something. I didn't know about that. Somebody else mentioned that also. I don't know about that.
Mr. Trump, what do you think would likely concern you?
Yes, go ahead.
What do you think about the memo?
About what?
What do you think about the memo your national hotel crew, Sam Clovis, about their lack of religious?
Well, I haven't heard about it, but he was on the other side, so he's saying things, and you'd really have to ask him. He's a wonderful guy. Sam Clovis, you're talking about? He's a wonderful guy, a terrific guy, and I'm way in the head in Iowa. I'm leading the polls by a lot, even before Sam joined, and we love to have Sam. And I mean, obviously, the fact that he joined, I think, says so much, but we love having Sam Clovis.
Mr. Trump, when out of the hands of the mentally ill?
Well, you're going to have to do something because you can't allow this to happen. And what happened in Virginia is absolutely terrible. So sad to see these magnificent two people, and the woman that was hurt, but these magnificent two people, so sad. So something has to happen. At the same time, it's not about the guns, it's about mental instability. You have people with great mental instability. And it's a shame because if you look at this man that did this horrible act, people knew that he was mentally unstable for years. And it's a shame that he couldn't have been in a hospital or something. Yes, go ahead.
Hillary Clinton this morning compared GOP candidates' views on women's health issues to those of terrorists. So any thoughts on that?
Well, I tell you what, she can maybe speak to Jeb Bush on that issue because he was very negative on women's health issues. But I've been very positive on women's health. In fact, my daughter Ivanka and my wife Melania were very, very strong on, they said you should, they know how I feel about women and women's health issues. And they said you should really talk about it more. But for me, it's going to be a very major thing. I know Jeb Bush really said some bad things, and he said bad on Asian. All of a sudden, he's talking about anchor babies, and he steered it over to the Asians, and now the Asians are upset with Jeb Bush. So you're going to have to ask him about those. But I will take care of women's health and women's health issues better than anybody, and far better than Hillary Clinton, who doesn't have a clue, and I don't think maybe she won't even be in the race. We'll have to see, but maybe she won't.
Yeah. Can you address the African American community?
Well, I've had great friendships in the African American community. As you know, they're suffering. They've never had bad job numbers like they do right now, especially African American youth. It's terrible what's happening. As you see, I have great relationships because you're seeing the poll numbers. One of the things that was so nice in South Carolina and other places where they do the polls and they break the polls down, I do great in the African American community. And one of the reasons is because they know I'm going to create jobs. But I've had a great relationship with the African American community. I appreciate the question.
You just criticized the auto industry, the foreign auto industry, for exporting into the United States. The South is full of plants creating jobs. How do you conciliate?
Many jobs are taken from the United States because our trade negotiators are the worst. We don't have people that know anything about negotiation. And by the way, you can go back to the Iran deal. You can go back to trade deals. We don't have anybody in this country that knows what they're doing in terms of negotiation. We have a president that doesn't have a clue, and that's going to all change. Our country will be great again, that I can tell you.
Will you run
South Carolina better than the senior senator? Why do you think that is?
Well, I got a poll that was much higher. I'm at 30, he's at 4. And I think he's lucky to be at 4, to be honest. I would not want to be him in running for office in South Carolina. I think he's been a terrible representative for South Carolina. And all he does is attack me. His whole line is to attack Donald Trump. And the beauty is he went down to 0 in the national poll. He's got 0. That means out of thousands of people that are polled, he got nobody. I don't know how you can get 0. So I think it's really, it got to be a point where it's almost laughable. But his primary mode of getting elected is to attack Trump. And he went from 4% to 2% to 0. He's 0 right now. He made a very big mistake when he ran because the people of South Carolina are watching this farce, and I think they're very upset by it. You know, he has not been a good representative for South Carolina. With that being said, I lead the poll in South Carolina, and I lead with almost every group, including, as we said, the African American groups. They just came out, and I have tremendous support. I'm going to be coming down here soon and making a speech in front of small business, African American small business, and I look forward to that. Yes, sir, go ahead.
If you're leading, how do you fix the race relations problem that this country is?
It's a great question. Race relations problems are almost at an all-time worst. And two things. We need jobs and we need spirit. And, you know, President Obama, I really thought that he would be a unifier. The one thing I said, he's not experienced. I don't know how he's going to do. He won the election. But I thought that one thing he'd do is be a unifier, certainly between African American and white. And I will tell you, that's turned out not to be so. He has not been a unifier. He's been a divider. We need spirit in the country. We need cohesiveness, and we need jobs. We'll get it fixed. We'll get it fixed. I mean, they're great people. They want jobs so badly. You look at African American youth. There's 50, 60, 70% unemployment. We'll get it fixed. We'll take them back from China. We'll take them back from Japan. We'll take them back from Mexico. We'll take jobs back, and we're going to have jobs in this country. Okay.
There was a report out that you're going to begin outreach to some faith leaders and things too. Can you talk anything about that? And then I'm wondering, you say you're Presbyterian. What church do you attend there in New York City, and how often do you go?
I am Presbyterian Protestant. I go to Marble Collegiate Church. The church I was originally with was the First Presbyterian Church in Jamaica, which is out in Queens, New York. And I've had just great experiences at church, whether it's Sunday school or whatever it may be. But now I go to Marble Collegiate Church.
How often do you attend?
As often as I can, a lot. And I do, because I travel so much, I go around the country.
What about the outreach to faith leaders? What do you intend to say?
Well, at some point I'm going to be meeting with ministers and pastors. I mean, one of the very sad things is that in Iran, and as part of the Iran deal, we have a pastor over there. He's in Iran right now as a prisoner because he's a minister, because he's a pastor, because he's a Christian. And we have 4 other people. Now you tell me, why aren't these negotiators that made this horrible deal with Iran, 24 days, they do their own inspections, the whole thing is, they get $150 billion and more. Why aren't they releasing our prisoners? Why didn't Kerry say, by the way, before we begin, release our prisoners? You have a journalist, you have 4 great people. One of them is there because he's a Christian. Why didn't they say, release our prisoners? And that should have happened 2 years ago.
Speaking of the Iran deal, can you talk about the event that you said that you might be working on with?
We are talking to Ted Cruz, who's a friend of mine and a good guy, about doing something very big over the next 2 weeks in Washington. It'll be announced, and it's essentially a protest against the totally incompetent deal that we're making with Iran. And by the way, even if you break it up, they're going to get $150 billion. They're going to get hundreds of billions of dollars, even if you break it up. And you know what I do? I wouldn't give them the money. I don't care what the deal. I would not give them the money. So that deal will be announced over the next, that location will be announced over a little bit.
You mentioned in your speech the silent majority. Can you just expand a little bit on what you meant by that?
So you have a silent majority in this country that feels abused, that feels forgotten, that feels mistreated. And it's a term that hasn't been brought up in years, as you know. People haven't heard that term in many years. And it's sort of interesting as to why. There are all different reasons. But I think it's a very descriptive term. Every time I speak, I have sold-out crowds. Every time I speak, I have standing ovations. Every single time. It's the silent majority. They want to see wins. They want to see us have victory. We're not having victory anymore in this country. Whether it's trade, whether it's military, whether it's even the building of our military. You see what's going on? Every day I get listings for bases that are for sale. Our military is virtually for sale. I mean, I'm in the real estate business. I'm always getting listings. And the listings are for an army base, for a military base, for a naval base. And I'll tell you, the other thing is our vets are being treated horribly. We have vets that are the best people. Our wounded warriors are being treated terribly. And these are the best people we have in this country. And if I win, believe me, they are going to be not 4th-class citizens or 3rd. They're going to be Number one, our vets, our wounded warriors, we are going to treat them the way they should have been treated. But they are being treated horribly, okay?
But are you worried about the history of that term?
I'm not worried about it because it's a very descriptive term. Only in sense, I'm just bringing it to modern day. There is no better expression for what's happening, because this is a movement. There is no better expression for what's happening than the expression silent majority. Because that's what's happening. People are coming out. In Alabama, we had more than 30,000 people on a very, very warm day with rain getting ready to pour down in a stadium. It was unbelievable. You saw 4,000 people the other night in Iowa. You saw what happened in New Hampshire. You saw what happened today for a luncheon, where it broke every record. We have a silent majority that wants this country to have victories again. And we're going to do it. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Right here. Go ahead. Right here. Good job. Good job. Thank you.
And I'm going to be the next pope. And I'm going to be the next.
I should have listened to that a little bit longer. I think the cameramen were being sassy. You know I love a sassy cameraman. That's what I live for. Let's check back in with some of our local stories. Oh, what's this? Is this an actual package? This is scary looking. Road rage? I hope this isn't me. That would be so embarrassing. Listening to that song, I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller on the 51.
Just hit.
Whoa.
Wow.
Wow. Well, thankfully it wasn't me. Moral of the story: don't drive like a crazy person. Keep it cool. You're all precious cargo. We are all precious cargo. That's pretty scary, though. I would freak out if I saw somebody driving like that. My least favorite story of the day: Arizona man arrested for trying to help ISIS.
Well, man, we're going to go to some other news right now. An Avondale man facing federal charges tonight, accused of aiding the terror group ISIS.
According to court paperwork, Ahmed Mohammed El Gamal voiced support for ISIS through social media and then helped a New York college student travel to Syria so he could train with that terror group. Jessica Flores has more now from Avondale.
This is 42-year-old Ahmed Mohammed Al Gamal, also known as Jamie Gamal. He's the Arizona man the Department of Justice says conspired to support ISIS. At his Avondale apartment complex, a woman who identified as his mother answers the door.
They say that he supports ISIS. Is that true? Do you know anything about that?
No, I don't know anything. Nothing at all.
His mother says she just arrived in Arizona 4 days ago from Egypt. That's the last she says she spoke to her son, who she says has lived in the United States since he was at least 24 years old.
More than 18 years.
He's lived here for more than 18 years.
Yeah.
Is he an American citizen?
Yeah.
Al Gamal's Facebook account is filled with his views about the U.S. and Middle East relations. U.S. authorities say Al Gamal used his social media accounts to facilitate the terrorist training of a New York college student. U.S. attorneys say through social media he connected the student to a contact in Turkey that helped the student get to Syria for ISIS training.
Okay, so this is the guy that they arrested. Is that the person that lived?
Oh yeah, I know him.
Neighbor Chris Ricciardi says he often saw Al Gamal around the complex.
So you've talked to him. How has that been? Has he been nice? Or?
Yeah, he was always really friendly. Never just, hey, how are you? That kind of thing. Nothing out of the ordinary.
Wow, that is absolutely scary. I don't know if it just ended abruptly or if that's all we have, but absolutely horrific situation. Having a man in Avondale trying to aid ISIS, completely unacceptable. And we have to be so unbelievably thankful to the authorities for catching this individual in time before anything terrible could happen, because a lot of times we hear stories like this and they let them go or they didn't catch them soon enough. So he was apprehended. Thankfully, he's in custody and facing federal charges, as you heard Troy Hayden say. Let's see. Here's an interesting case.
A North Valley community rallying together, hoping to find a killer. Ramon Fernandez was stabbed to death outside of a New River restaurant. Celeste Rodriguez has more on how his family and friends are working to find who's responsible.
A wonderful, beautiful family outing turned into a family nightmare.
Dawn Fernandez has worked tirelessly to find the person who killed her husband, Ramon. And now a new reward for information, $11,000.
Through the community coming together and doing the fundraisers and the car washes and the GoFundMe accounts and everything, we got the funds together that I needed.
This after a night with family at a saloon in New River, July 25th, went horribly wrong. Dawn went home early with her grandchildren that night. Later, a call her husband had been stabbed at the restaurant.
Apparently there was a bar fight. It broke out and my husband got stabbed in the chaos.
The call from a sheriff's deputy to visit her at home.
I don't want you to come here. I'm coming to you. And my youngest son and I drove out to the site, and it wasn't what I expected.
Now justice is what she hopes for. Her husband, Ramon, a man with a love for fitness and family. Celeste Rodriguez, Fox 10 News.
Ramon, as you can see, was a fitness coach, sports coach, and was very involved in his community.
A horrible story. That broke my heart. I can't imagine being in that situation. Let's try a happier story. This one's out of Florida.
This story begins and ends right here in this modest home in Leesburg. Two prominent doctors say a miracle happened here.
I would absolutely agree that it can be categorized as a miracle. I don't think you can call it anything else.
Leesburg oncologist Dr. Tavlo Reyes says it can absolutely be categorized as a miracle, a rare admittance in the medical profession. And he's talking about the sudden and complete absence of cancer in 79-year-old Maureen Berry's body.
In February this year, I was diagnosed with renal cancer, advanced renal cancer stage 4. And it had metastasized, which means it had spread to my skull and to my scapula, other bones.
Doctors soon determined removal of the kidney was necessary, but said there was no real cure for the cancer in the bones. This is Maureen shortly after the devastating diagnosis. Maureen's prognosis, less than 1 year to live.
When I found out that, I never lost hope. I have faith enough to believe that that wouldn't happen.
And this picture, taken just days after doctors gave her the stunning news, all the cancer was gone, disappeared.
Of course we were joyful. We were joyful. And, but at the same time, I expected it to happen.
That is strong faith. Joyful, not surprised.
Yeah.
The Lord's Prayer says, "Our Father." And so if he's our Father, I can talk to him.
And you did.
And I did.
And he listened.
And he listened.
Al and Maureen have a strong faith in God. Maureen's a retired pastor. Al says he prayed for his wife 10 to 20 times a day. Their church prayed. Their son's wife in Houston requested prayers on Facebook. Their 1,000-member congregation prayed. Folks around the country prayed. And the impossible happened. Cancer to no cancer. Maureen says it's God. And now?
I made it my business to tell people about what had happened to me, because God has no favorites. He's no respecter of persons. So what he did for me, he can do for others as well.
Tracy Jason, Fox 35 News.
It's a great story, sweet story, and that woman is so gracious and kind and thankful. And you think that couldn't have happened to a better person. I have to show you a story that I know is going to get under your skin now.
The Napa Valley wine train is making tracks to make amends.
We had a major customer service blunder.
CEO Tony Giasio is talking about what happened last weekend.
Very humiliating.
On Saturday, 11 women who planned a special wine train book club outing were kicked off the train.
That is just unacceptable.
Some passengers complained they were laughing too loudly. The women believed the issue was not the tone of their voices, but the color of their skin. All but one is African American. They posted their experience on social media with the hashtag #LaughingWhileBlack.
This was definitely a customer service issue, 100%.
Not a race issue.
Not at all.
We totally disagree. And, you know, I mean, I don't know what to say other than I have been black all my life. I know what it feels like.
Lisa Johnson is one of the women in the book club Sisters on the Reading Edge.
It seems that everybody wants us to say they apologize. So, you know, now just get over it. You know what I mean? And I just want people to recognize that it is our life. You know what I mean? It's something that we've experienced that's just not going to go away.
In a written apology to the women, the CEO of the Napa Valley Wine Train said the company was 100% wrong in the handling of the issue, that they were insensitive to march the women down the center of the train to disembark, that police didn't need to be waiting trackside, and finally, that the wine train erred in placing an inaccurate post on its Facebook page that described the group's behavior as physically and verbally abusive. It wasn't, and that post was deleted.
We could have done better.
The CEO says they will use this as a teaching tool to keep it from happening again.
We're only human and we're going to make mistakes. And if we make a mistake, we're going to make it better. We're going to make it right.
The wine train has invited the ladies back for a do-over of their first experience.
That first experience will forever be etched in my mind, and I'm just not interested in repeating that.
The women say while they appreciate the offer and hope changes are coming, they aren't likely to climb aboard the Napa Valley wine train again.
Let's jump back to Arizona news.
Sheriff's deputies say they found the man dubbed the Ninja Warrior, and he's not facing any charges. This is a Fox follow-up. Last night, we showed you these surveillance photos captured over the weekend. They show a man walking through a Sun City backyard with what looks like a samurai sword. Turns out he was carrying the sword in a case, and he was walking around with that weapon because he worried about being attacked by a wild animal. Sheriff's deputies say that's why no charges will be filed.
First on Fox tonight, new details about the man who police say is behind a string of crimes that took place on Monday.
His name is Jaime Villa. He's a suspected bank robber who shot at police and then the officers on a chase throughout the valley that was on TV before he was finally captured. Police say Villa robbed the National Bank of Arizona in Chandler on Monday afternoon. As he was making his getaway, he realized he was being followed. And that's when police say he started shooting at officers.
Well, the officers tried to stop him several times. They even threw out stop sticks in the road, but he dodged them. And this chase went on for about an hour and a half, from Chandler all the way to downtown Phoenix, and then to Tempe, not far from the airport.
All the while, the suspect weaving in and out of traffic, running red lights, and then making his way down crowded Mill Avenue right by ASU before bailing out of his car at a movie theater. Nicole Garcia now joins us with the latest on this case. Nicole?
That's right, guys. This is Jaime Villa. He's the alleged armed bank robber behind Monday's
string of crimes, and now investigators are saying he could also be behind a bank robbery series. Check this out. These are surveillance photos of the man that the FBI has dubbed the sabbatical bandit. Now, this man has robbed at least 5 Valley banks since 2010. Take a look. If you compare the photos, Villa looks very similar to the man that the FBI is looking for. And now the FBI is saying they're investigating whether Villa could be the sabbatical bandit.
It's a bank on the corner. We were just robbed. National Bank of Arizona. Any weapons? No, we didn't even know what was going on. Did he get anything? Yes, he got our teller's money.
New details about the armed robber who held up a Chandler bank Monday, then led officers on a chase across the valley. The suspect now identified as Jaime Villa.
Shots fired. Car is traveling north. Get Phoenix on the phone. See if we got an air unit available, please.
Villa allegedly fired at police 2 separate times. Both times, police say the bullets came close to hitting the officers who were chasing him.
Shots fired. Took one shot at us as we getting on the freeway.
It's rush hour traffic. If we can stop him safely, give it to the air unit.
I want all marked Phoenix units to peel off, go back 10-8. And stop pursuing the vehicle.
The police chopper followed Villa to Tempe, where he ditched his car near University and Mill. Police say he tried to buy a movie ticket and hide in the AMC theater. When officers closed in on him, he shoved a bag of money into the ticket booth before he was arrested. Now the FBI is investigating whether Villa is the so-called sabbatical bandit. Last month, the bank robbery task force released these photos, asking for the public's help in identifying him. He first robbed a bank in 2010 and then took a 4-year sabbatical before robbing a second bank in 2014. Investigators say since then, the sabbatical bandit robbed 3 more banks in Mesa, Tempe, and Scottsdale. The man in these surveillance photos bears a striking resemblance to Villa, but so far the FBI has not officially connected Villa to those bank robberies.
Now, another similarity, the description of the sabbatical bandit's getaway car, a maroon Chrysler, matches Villa's vehicle. Villa is now facing federal charges relating to Monday's armed bank robbery, and he's also facing felony state charges for the chase and for shooting at officers. Reporting live, I'm Nicole Garcia, Fox 10 News.
Not John Hook that has me rattled. It is Troy Hayden.
I'm just trying to understand if you're saying, have you been here long enough to not understand the heat island? Is that what you're saying?
No. I don't even know what a heat island is.
Okay. I thought you were going deep on it.
No, Troy, sit down.
Did you know that storms edge around the city because there's so much cement and so much heat?
Everything you're saying is I cannot digest that. No. I take back my words.
Feisty, man. Let's open up the phones right now. Open up the mic.
How about this? A break in a cold case that stretched back to the 1970s. Police arrest a man accused of murdering a woman back in 1978. Linda Williams live now with how they tracked down this killer all these years later, Linda.
Can you imagine? Physical evidence meets technology and points at a murder suspect. That's what Glendale police say happened here. The victim, a former Glendale High cheerleader and ASU student who was shot and killed in her car. The case baffled Glendale investigators for 37 years.
Our news cameras were there on March 23rd of 1978 as Glendale investigators went over Susan Schmidt's 1976 Toyota Celica. They were searching for clues into who would shoot and kill the 21-year-old ASU student. 37 years later, a suspect in her murder is finally arrested.
Well, the message is that we don't give up.
Cold case detective Roger Geisler announcing of the arrest in Virginia last week, a 54-year-old Edward Meinhold.
It's important to me because I'm able to give the family some answers as to what may have occurred.
Glendale police say on that Wednesday evening in 1978, Schmidt had gone shopping at the Valley West Mall at 59th Avenue in Northern. Just after 8:30, a jogger discovered her slumped in her car, which was stopped in the middle of 55th Avenue, just south of Northern. Back then, it was a dark, secluded, rural area.
I wasn't there. I wish I could say why she stopped or what stopped the car, but something stopped the car on that road when this occurred.
Schmidt, a well-known, well-liked student, had been shot several times and later died.
Several investigators and detectives over the years have worked numerous leads, and everything was exhausted.
Detective Geisler says physical evidence found in the car led them to Meinhold just 6 weeks ago.
I would say technology helped us solve this case, most definitely.
And there are still so many questions in this case. Glendale police, for instance, say Schmidt did not know Meinhold. Plus, consider this, Meinhold was 17 years old at the time. What's the connection here, and what is the motive? Meinhold is awaiting extradition back to Arizona from Virginia. He's facing first-degree murder charges, and you can bet we will be following this one through. I'm Linda Williams, Fox 10 News.
Everybody tell this camera what they should be doing in the next 4 minutes. Hello? Tell these people to watch your show.
Are we on?
Yes.
Well, first of all, this is very crude, but effective. Watch Fox 10 News at 9.
Yes.
With John and Troy.
That's it.
The dynamic duo. Who's Batman, who's Robin?
Carrie is still sunning herself somewhere in an undisclosed location. We're working here. We're not screwing around like she is, but
Yeah.
at any rate.
What's Carrie doing?
That is the best show closing of all time, ever. That was beautiful. That was really beautiful. It's probably my favorite moment in FNN history. Would you agree? Would you agree? Now I have to go back and look at the chat. Aww. Troy say Bill Clinton. I love it. I don't know if you got Bill voice, but I tried. I tried to give you a little behind the scenes. We call that BTS in LA. Give you some BTS. I'm trying to see what story I can give you, like a nicer story to end the night with, and I found it right here.
Every day, driving his route, Chris Martin looks out for his riders.
I always try to help out when I can.
Tuesday morning was no different when he picked up an elderly man who needed to catch a connecting bus. The man was headed to the VA hospital.
It's something we do on a day-to-day basis. You know.
Video from inside the bus shows the man exiting.
God bless him.
What happens next is simple, to say the least.
Oh, that's so nice.
But each person who sees it can't help but smile.
Even though he could have kept going to his next stop, he stopped, parked the bus.
That's so cool of him.
Yeah, definitely have more people like that.
Martin jumps from his driver's seat to help the elderly man.
He said, I need to get on the 23. I can't miss this 23.
And then you can answer. Across the street.
He appreciated it, so I felt good doing a good deed.
Other riders inside took notice, passing along a good word to Milwaukee County Transit.
Our drivers and all of our employees do a great job every single day, and we're happy to kind of help highlight it.
For Martin,
you know, we're all people and sometimes we need help.
It was just another day on the job. Happy his small act of kindness had a big impact.
Well, it's a good feeling, though. It's nice to help.
What a great story. What a happy way to end our Fox 10 News Now 6:30 to 9 edition. We are here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. We're Fox 10 News Now. You can watch us on our YouTube channel by subscribing right now, please. You can download our app. It's free. Follow us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. I'm Kinsey Schofield. I'm going to see you tomorrow. And there's nothing that I could do that would be better than the way this show just ended with John Hook and Troy Hayden, my spirit animals. They're amazing. So you should turn on the 9 p.m. broadcast if you're local. It's Channel 10. You should be turning that on and watching Batman and Robin doing the news for you right now. Which one's Batman, which one's Robin? Leave it in the comments. I love you guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.